over.
Master, they're trying to steal our Cat3 data. They ransomwared us. They want a Bitcoin. Master, we're all out of Bitcoin.
All right. Is that the end of the dancing? Because I cannot unsee that after that wonderful dancing. Great video. All right. So it is my pleasure to introduce Ralph Johnson, our State Chief Information Security Officer, CISO, and the WATEC Office of Cybersecurity Director, who will talk to you today on the topic of zero trust. Trust is not a control. It sounds fascinating, and I want to thank Ralph for taking the time to put this presentation together. As Washington State's Chief Information Security Officer, Ralph Johnson is responsible for establishing and leading the strategic direction of cybersecurity and advising the state CIO, myself, and agency leaders on key cyber issues, which is no small task in today's world. I remember recently challenging Ralph, as I often do, because that is the relationship we have, as to why he is not more involved in leading zero trust strategy, given his position and expertise. And there had already been a lot of great work done by Mike Costello and his group on zero trust, and that Ralph could build on. Well, Ralph took that challenge, has dug in hard, has attended training, reading, listening to his audiobooks, and now has really gained a lot of knowledge, but I will also say a lot of excitement about zero trust. And I think that'll come out in his presentation. I've always respected Ralph for his ability to do whatever it takes to gain the knowledge required to level up his knowledge, skills, and abilities. He loves to learn and take on new things, which makes him a great CISO for our state. I've worked with Ralph now for 15 years. Can you imagine that? And can attest to his passion for his work, his commitment to his teams and his agency. Ralph, many of you know this, but Ralph is very well respected CISO around the country, holding positions on the MS-ISAC board, and also holding teaching positions at the University of Washington. I've always considered myself fortunate that Ralph has served with me in my career as CIO in King County and CIO in LA County, and now with the state of Washington. Ralph has always been an inspiration to me on how well he lives and works with his disability. He lives his life with no excuses, expecting no special favors, and is one of the best writers and researchers and presenters that I have ever worked with, and he has worked hard on his presentation skills. I know that for a fact. His work ethic is unmatched. Whenever I need Ralph on the weekend or after hours for anything, he is always available and willing to help. Ladies and gentlemen, Ralph Johnson presenting on Zero Trust. Trust is not a control, and I trust you will learn a lot from his presentation. Thank you.
Wow. I'm not sure that my presentation can follow that introduction there, Bill. Let's see if I can show you my screen here. Can you see my presentation? I'm not seeing it.
Yes.
Yep, it's perfect.
Okay, good. All right. Well, Bill says that we've worked together for 15 years. I think that it's more like he's tolerated me for 15 years, because he tells a story about when he first met me, people were telling him he should fire me. He chose not to do that, and I don't know whether that was a good thing or a mistake. So anyway, I want to wish you all a good afternoon to everyone that's online here. I see that we had about 80 people the last time I checked. That's amazing. I want to thank you for being here. either because you're deeply interested in cybersecurity or because someone forwarded you a calendar invite with no context. Either way, you're in the right place. We're here to talk about Zero Trust, not the sequel to a spy thriller, not a mindset, but a mindset that may save your organization. Today, I want to move past the buzzwords and vendor pitches and talk about what Zero Trust really is, why it matters, and how we can actually get there without losing our sanity or our team members. So here's our agenda for today. This is where we're going. We're starting with the big picture, then we'll dive into some strategy, and I promise we'll keep the tech talk light enough that nobody leaves with a migraine, especially me. Bill, on the other hand, he can have one. Let's go back in time. In the good old days of cybersecurity, we built a nice, strong perimeter. Our firewalls were our digital moat. We locked the front door. We trusted everything inside. Former coworker of mine used to call it the M&M model, the hard, crunchy shell with the soft inside. We trusted everything inside. We didn't even tend to lock the doors a lot of times to the different buildings and rooms. But then what happened? Cloud happened. Many of your workloads moved outside of your perimeter, outside of your control, into another data center. Remote work happened. Pandemic showed us that people can still be productive while working from their dining room tables. But that removed the perimeter protections to their laptops. Mobile devices happened. And BYOD. Most of those were never within your perimeter in the first place. People brought their cell phones, started doing work on their mobile devices. Shadow IT happened. This is where an organization, a section within your organization goes out and hires an entity to perform work for you. And guess what? You and IT don't even know about it. They're just out there doing things, or they hire a service. They hire they contract with a file repository that's not approved by IT. And hackers got better. They got smarter. They started using new techniques. They started using artificial intelligence, which lowers the barrier to entry for those individuals, makes it much easier for them to attempt to break into your systems. Suddenly, the front door is a revolving door, and your moat is more like a puddle. We now live in a world where bad guys are already inside, and sometimes they even have name badges. So what's Zero Trust? It's not a product. You ever run across a vendor that says, I'm going to sell you Zero Trust? Don't definitely apply Zero Trust to their statement. They may sell you a piece of Zero Trust or a tool that will help you with Zero Trust, but they will not be able to sell you Zero Trust. It's not a dashboard with a fancy dark mode. It's a security philosophy. And that philosophy is never trust, always verify, which is good advice when you're talking to a vendor. That means every device, user, application, or request needs to prove it deserves access continuously, like a teenager asking for the car keys, or the princess in the video you just saw. I loved it when she couldn't get into 3B. Zero Trust uses continuous identity checks, uses least privileged access, and it uses microsegmentation, among other tools, to protect what matters, and ensures a breach at every step, assumes a breach at every step. It constantly assumes that the bad guy's already in the system. We borrow our principles from the National Institute of Standards and Technology and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, NIST and CISA, the Department of Defense, and the National Security Telecommunications Advisory Committee. Now there's a phrase for you. They're the smartest people in the room when it comes to cybersecurity. And here's the cheat sheet. So the principles are: assume a breach. Assume that the bad guys are already in your system. They've got some level of access. Verify explicitly. Verify every person's identity, every device's identity, every application's identity. And enforce least privileges. Once they have access, they should have access to only what the individual, the application, or the device needs to perform their function. Monitor everything. Record it all. Keep logs, because you may have to go back and review that information. And build from the inside out. Start small, and we're going to get to that in a little bit. In short, be suspicious, be precise, and always log things like your future job depends on it, because maybe it does. Firewalls used to be the first line of defense. As we talked about your moat, that's no longer the case. Now it's your identity system. It's your Active Directory, your Entra ID, or if God forbid you're using Google, it's their identity system. That's the bouncer at the club, and that bouncer needs to be trained, sober, and hard to trick. Every access request should be checked for who it is, where are they, their location, are they trying to connect from someplace that's not permitted, what device are they using, is the device itself authorized to connect, and does this behavior match their usual patterns? Think of it like the TSA on your network, but hopefully with fewer delays. Here's where Zero Trust gets smart. Instead of trying to protect everything, which is exhausting, we define what are called protect surfaces. These are the things that we put our barriers around: our critical data, our key applications, and our high-risk users or transactions. We protect what is often in this industry called the crown jewels: the data, the applications, key users, and transactions. We map how they interact and apply security exactly where it's needed. It's like building laser tripwires around the crown jewels, not the office plants. Let's talk about progress, not perfection. CISA and the DoD give us maturity models, a way to chart our Zero Trust journey. CISA's model provides 4 stages. Traditional, which is the very beginning. It's things like, we still have shared passwords, which I hope no one out there listening to me actually has those. Then there's initial, a little bit further up the chain. Number 3 is advanced, And finally, we get to something called optimal, where we are so tight in that area that we can actually finally sleep at night. We work through the 5 pillars, and this helps us to define our protect surfaces, our identities, our devices, the network itself, our applications, and the data that resides within those applications. The key, don't do it all at once. That's how people burn out and start bringing comfort cats to meetings. Zero Trust isn't just a security upgrade. It's a business strategy. It's a philosophy. We need to think Zero Trust all the time. Whenever we're looking at a platform or a process or an acquisition, how can we ensure Zero Trust in that acquisition, that platform? CISA emphasizes this. It improves resilience, supports compliance, and helps organizations operate confidently in uncertain environments. It's not about paranoia. It's about knowing. And believe me, your executive team loves knowing. How do we get there? Implementation without burnout. We don't want people to burn out, because this could actually lead there if you try to tackle everything all at once. You don't need a 400-page plan or 27 tools from 14 different vendors. You want to start small. You want to pick a protect surface. Pick your identity management system. Pick a database. Pick a key user or a key transaction that needs to be protected. You want to focus on the identity, the things that need access to that protect surface. You want to align it with use cases. So understand the use cases for that protect surfaces. What is that database being used for? What does that key individual do? And then you want to track your progress with maturity models. You want to make sure everything's logged so that you can go back and take a look at it. But track your progress through the maturity model, through that 4-stage model that I showed earlier. Talk to your people. Zero Trust isn't as much a culture shift as a technological one. Zero Trust is, I said isn't, but it is just as much a culture shift as a technological one. As a matter of fact, it's probably more of a culture shift than the technology, because the chances are you already have the technology in many cases that you need. The real challenge is reviewing habits, rewiring habits, not hardware. Rewiring, sorry, I'm reading my notes poorly here. What does success look like? How do you know when you've succeeded at Zero Trust? With regard to that particular protect surface that you've selected, you're going to catch more threats faster. You're going to reduce lateral movement. That chance that ransomware is going to get from point A to point B is going to be reduced. You have an audit trail for every access event, which allows you to know who did what, when, and why. In Washington State, early adopters of Zero Trust have already reduced our attack surfaces and started applying intelligent identity governance in the cloud. Progress over perfection, that's the goal. If you remember just one thing, Zero Trust isn't about locking everything down. It's about letting the right people in safely, securely, and confidently. That's why the princess couldn't get into 3B. The king was no longer confident. Zero Trust is about how we stop hoping that things will get better and start planning for reality. I want to thank you for being here. Now let's open it up with some questions or confessions if anyone still uses admin123 as their password. Rhonda, can we open up for questions?
Okay, I just hit apply, so you guys can now use the chat. Or you can raise your hand if you'd like to come off camera and ask a question.
I see
Hey.
we have Randy.
How you
Hey,
doing,
Randy.
Ralph?
Good.
I just want to make a statement. You know, your trust yet verify. That's what we, as cybersecurity professionals, have tried to live by, and that's what I feel is the most important: is trust yet verify. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's something we've tried to do for a long time, but we're putting more emphasis on it now because of the way the network operates and the way environments operate, right? We have to put more emphasis on it and change the way we look at things.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, and we have a question in the chat. Brent Anderson from OFM was asking, I was wondering if F5 had zero trust in place when they were breached.
I do not know. I don't know enough about the F5 breach to know that, to know the answer to that. They may have, it is entirely possible that every organization has zero trust in one area or another. I can cite areas of Washington State where we have zero trust and other areas where we don't yet. So zero trust is not something you can do globally in a short period of time. So it's entirely possible that F5 had zero trust in some areas, maybe not in the area where they were breached, but I don't know. I honestly don't know enough about the breach to be able to tell that.
Okay. Kelly Sanders from WATEC asked, curious how Washington State compares to the maturity of other state governments in regards to adoption of zero trust principles.
Wow, that's a difficult one to answer because there are 50 states and 6 territories across the United States, plus the Washington, D.C. And to be honest with you, when I meet with other state CISOs, we don't go into this topic in that much detail. I do not hear a lot of other state CISOs talking about zero trust frequently. I've had a few conversations with a couple of them, but my impression is that they're not as deeply into it as we're trying to get. So that I really can't answer that because there's never been a survey or any inquiry in any environment that I've been a part of to say how are you doing with zero trust in your state. So but I get the impression that most of them are not really focusing heavily on it. They may be doing pieces of it here and there, but as a global philosophy, I don't think that they've adopted it as we're trying to do here.
Mm-hmm.
That's pure speculation, however, to be honest with you.
All right, and Kim Hort, WATEC, she asked, how do we incorporate zero trust into our security policies and standards?
We're looking at that right now, and I'm taking a look at our existing policy stack and figuring out whether we should be writing a separate zero trust policy or incorporating and enhancing the policies that we have to strengthen the principles of zero trust within the policies. Either one is an effective way to go about it. I'm leaning towards incorporating them into the concepts and principles into existing policies, however, because they spread across the different pillars, and writing a separate policy, I feel might be a little harder to integrate. We're looking at doing that. I've started to examine where those concepts would be within the policies, and we'll be, if as we go down that road, we'll be taking it through the governance process, just as we have with any other policy, although we'll probably be taking a number of policies all at once and taking a look at just the pieces that change. We're also taking a look at, our policies are relatively new, and we have found some gaps in those policies over the last 1.5 to 2 years, and answering some clarifying questions. So we're also taking a look at how to improve those aspects within the policies as well. So we might be taking a number of policies all at once through, but only reviewing those parts that have changed. And I love the fact that Kim asked the question, because she, having been in the deputy CISO for policy and program management, she did a lot of the preliminary work on this. So I want to give her a lot of credit for that work, and confirm with her how we're planning to go about that.
Okay, and Rob has his hand up. So Rob?
Sorry, Ralph, you were like in my area that I love to ask questions about. I was recently, looking at the security principles that you have published as a guideline. Kudos to OCS for having principles. I love that. I was going to ask you if you intend to update those principles with any of the zero trust principles, or maybe add some of those in there.
Yes, we do. That's part of the policy work that we're doing. We will incorporate several of the principles into our existing security principles. Not necessarily adding to them, but incorporating them as seems appropriate. Because least privileges is already one of our security principles, and that fits directly in with zero trust. So we'll be looking at that as well.
All right, and Renee Metzger from WATEC asks, is trust but verify still relevant in zero trust landscape, or is never trust, always verify more accurate for the mindset?
Well, the philosophical phrase is never trust, always verify. So, Rhonda, could you read me that again?
So it says here, is trust but verify still relevant in a zero trust landscape, or is never trust, always verify more accurate in that mindset?
Yeah, no, we don't want to always trust, because that's the old model where we had remember I called it the M&M model. And we always trusted everybody once they were in, and we can no longer do that. We can no longer trust everybody once they're in, because there's a concept in the world of cybersecurity called insider threat. And I can tell you horror stories over the years of a trusted person doing something that they shouldn't just because they could. And in many of those cases, the information was not tracked, so they did not know who did it. They did not know why they did it. They did not know when they did it, or even from where they did it. So never trust, always verify is the mantra for zero trust.
Yep, that's what she said. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. Okay, then we have Federico, who is saying, when is the goal to have zero trust infrastructure for Washington state agencies? Also, how is zero trust initiatives being funded?
Let me start with the second one first. Many zero trust initiatives don't have to be funded. As I said before, it's not always the technology. You don't always have to buy a product. You can look at your processes. You can tighten up your processes. I'll give you an example. We're working on a project with many of the agencies right now of what we call legacy or orphaned accounts that are in Active Directory. Those are a violation of zero principles in that they're just there. They haven't been used in a significant amount of time. To eliminate those, all it takes is a little bit of work on the part of the agency's IT staff to eliminate and to manage those accounts appropriately. There's no technology that you have to buy. In other cases, such as our Security Service Edge that we are implementing through WATEC and working with a number of agencies to get them on board, which extends our perimeter. Well, it doesn't exactly extend the perimeter, but it brings all of our remote workers back into the fold, if you will, and allows us to apply the security controls that used to exist on our firewall to them no matter where they are. That is being funded through various means, through budget packages and agency charges that are replacing other systems that we will be eliminating as we move that particular system into place. So it's not always a go and ask the legislature for money because you want to implement zero trust, because sometimes you don't need to. On the other hand, sometimes you may have to, and that's a different discussion, but that depends on the protect surface that you're looking at and evaluating. As far as a timeline for zero trust infrastructure, honestly, this is relatively new to Washington State. We are starting to examine our protect surfaces and defining Washington State infrastructure is, again, a huge picture. Defining the infrastructure is not starting small. It's not selecting a specific protect surface and applying your zero trust principles to that protect surface. So it is entirely possible that Washington State will never reach 100% zero trust. No organization ever does because new systems come on board all the time. Hopefully the zero trust was considered when they were acquired or implemented or designed. But if they weren't, zero trust has to be applied after the fact. Zero trust principles have to be examined. Protect surfaces have to be chosen, and the appropriate controls applied. So it's a mindset. If we keep these concepts in mind as we are acquiring systems, as we are building systems, as we are designing systems, we will be much closer to achieving zero trust. But again, who knows? We may never get 100% zero trust. But if we get 80% zero trust, we're a whole lot better than we are today, right?
Mhm. Okay, Danton Thompson. He has a question here. If you don't mind, could you speak on how we approach the emerging use of AI, ChatGPT, Copilot technologies from a zero trust standpoint, and what safeguard can we put in place?
Oh, wow, Danton, you really want to challenge me here. AI is going to be a challenge for us. We have to embrace it. It's coming. It is here. It is not going away. So we have to figure out how to utilize AI. We have to figure out how to protect our infrastructure from AI. Some of the controls that we can put in place are things like data leak prevention in combination with data tagging. We can identify and tag our data to the appropriate classification. If you're familiar with the classification standard, we've got category 1, 2, 3, and 4. And as it goes up the scale, the sensitivity and confidentiality of that data increases. We can, if we classify our data and we tag our data appropriately, we can build data loss prevention tools to detect when someone attempts to place the higher level confidential data into an AI tool. And that can be prevented. We can simply stop it from happening, or we can warn them that it's happening, or whatever choice we make to justify that. We could also prevent access to those platforms, ChatGPT or Copilot, unless they are the authorized platforms for the organization. We are investigating corporate ChatGPT platforms and corporate Copilot platforms or enterprise level platforms of those two products, and considering their use, which improves our protections. It doesn't eliminate the risks, but all of the risks. It reduces our risks significantly, and still provides us with the benefits of AI. So there are tools that we can put in place, and those are just the ones that come to mind at the moment. There are others that we might be able to apply as we start to look at that protect surface in more detail.
Okay, you liked it. Fantastic response, he said. I don't see any other questions. All right, so I just want to remind people we have 2 presentations tomorrow. One at 11 with Cindy Munoz from Cybersecurity Analyst from CISA, and then the Copilot use for securities insights has been added, and that's going to be done by Alex Salazar at 1 p.m. tomorrow. So these are the last 2 presentations other than the closing ceremonies, which will be on November 4th. So hope to see you all there. Thanks so much